This is Nathan Stanford Sr. from Codecraft Hub. What we're going to look at today is the Application.cfc. In the past, there used to be an Application.cfm. On any new application, I always recommend you do the Application.cfc. It's got new features, and it's also going to continue to be the one that they're going to add new features to. What is the Application.cfm or CFC? Basically, when you first log into a ColdFusion website, it's going to look at the local directory you've hit in your URL and see if there's an Application.cfc in it. If not, it's going to move up one folder in the folder structure until it finds an Application.cfc. Or if you have none, it'll go all the way up, and that'll slow down your site, but you kind of need it. So in the root of whatever your web directory is going to be for your application, you want to put in there an Application.cfc. So these are pretty easy to understand. The name of your application, so let's just say we're going to be talking about the Application.cfc. So I changed the name of it. So here, it's going to time out any application variables that you set. And this ones, those are also application variables. But they're going to time out after 30 days. But usually you don't want an application to have something that changes all the time. So 30 days should be fine. You can change it to match whatever you're using at work, in case they're already doing something else. There is a variable for session storage. That means you're going to keep track of each session as a user logs in. So if you set their user ID in a session variable, then you've got it as they click around in the website. You don't have to ask from the database or wherever you're getting it from to get it again. Like if you're checking LDAP, you don't have to get that again. So then if we look at the session timeout, we're going to set that to, you can set it 30 minutes, an hour. And there again, if your company's already got a special time that they allot, if you're using a single sign-on that takes an hour, you might want to match it so that way both things are timed out at the same time. And then like down here, this application, this data source has got a difference between these. These are just variables that you're setting that you're going to use elsewhere. I'll come back and explain that in just a minute because why this one is more important. On application start. So when your application starts, you may have certain things you want to set when it starts. You don't care about the rest of the time. You just want to set it when it starts. And then when you're done, you may want to take that application variable and delete it. So that way, next time the application starts, it'll get the new one. Session start is the same way. When a user comes in, as soon as they come in, they get assigned a session behind the scenes. There's an ID and a token that's pulled around with them to keep track of who they are so that you don't lose that person and switch it with somebody else. At the end of a session, you can set up to clean up those session variables, but usually when a session ends, it kills all the session variables. But still, there might be reasons to do certain tasks when a session ends. Then on request start, it's every single time they click a link or go somewhere, that's a request. So on the start of a request, there may be certain things you want to do, certain things you want to set up at the beginning of a request. I used to do stupid stuff that I consider stupid now. I put all my starting up variables like this request.dataSource inside of here. Or sometimes it was inside the onRequest. Well, if I'm only setting text, it's not a big deal really, but it probably should go in the session. The onRequest start and onRequest gets set every time. So if you are calling a database to check for security or any of that, you probably shouldn't be doing it here because then you're doing it every single time. And every single time you query a database, there's a cost to how fast your website's going to go. It's going to slow it down tremendously. Now, if you have a problem worrying about the person in the session, you should probably do it there. So that way, it's only done at the beginning of the first session that they come to. Now, recently, they've added the on-CFC request so that every time you go to hit a CFC, when you're calling objects, you can do certain variables and set certain variables before you hit the CFC request. On error and on abort, certain errors or certain abort, you can handle these errors or the aborts requests and log them if necessary or if needed. On missing templates, so if they go to hit a page and the page does not exist, here you can handle the logical, well, what do? We need to log it. We need to see, is it a bad link coming from somewhere else? Is it a bad link in our own website? Let's go fix this so that way it will work. Now, if it's coming from a different website, then you have a couple different choices. If it's hard to get a hold of them, then maybe you set up that link again temporarily so that it will still work. That is Application.cfc. Now let's go back and look at this .data source, CF Art Gallery. So if I go from here and I go to the index, down here, this is going to output all of these, and this is going to do a dump of the artist table from this data source. So if I go back here and I hit refresh, remember we changed it to Application.cfc. That lets you know this is coming from the one we changed. Here is the data that's coming through. Now I'm going to change this Application.cfc. Let's actually do the word. Let's actually do this. Let's do test : That way you know what we're doing is still the same page I'm editing. I'm not doing any trickery by showing you something from a different page. So now we don't have any data source. However, what it will do is it will go back to this data source to get that data source to be able to be displayed. So let's go and hit refresh. And you can see this is still CFC. And up here you see the word test : so it dumped it out. So it queried the same data source without having the data source. If your application only has one data source, then why not set it under this data source, and then you don't ever have to worry about calling it a variable or renaming it or any of that. You can just, if you need to rename it, you go to the Application.cfc and change it, and it will then reflect everywhere it's needed. So I hope this has helped you with the Application.cfc. Happy coding, and hope you, if you have any questions or want me to come up with some kind of video on what your subject is about, what you would like to know, or maybe some issues you're having, please do a comment. And if you like what I'm doing, please do a comment so that I know what I'm doing is on track. Obviously, like any other YouTuber, if you can, subscribe and watch my videos and share it to other people that are wanting to learn to program, especially if they're wanting to learn ColdFusion or PHP, because that's the two I'm focusing on now. We will do other stuff in the future. We've been doing some HTMX, so you can check that as well. Have a nice day coding.